It took me 4 years of grinding chess to finally hit 2000. Along the way, I developed a thinking system that helped me win hundreds of games, defeat top-level bots, and even beat a national master. Today, I'm going to show you this guideline so you can find the best move in literally any position. Are you ready? Let's get right into it. First, let's talk about how to find a plan. Every move in chess can be categorized as either a strategy or a tactic. And based on their definitions, it's clear that these two concepts are interdependent. We improve our positions to prepare for attack, and we attack to improve our positions. This concept actually links to Dorfman's theory as discussed in the previous video. Basically, we need to utilize our static advantage first, then employ dynamic means. Take the starting position as an example. Whenever we push our pawns towards the center, we are opening up space for our pieces to get developed. However, if we only push our pawns and never develop our pieces, then our structure can get easily attacked, and we can never stabilize and control the central squares. And vice versa, if all our pieces are developed, but we never go for the dynamic approach to change our structure, then we're probably just going to mess up our position or give the opponent the chance to consolidate. With that being said, the notion of plan in chess is essentially a loop between static and dynamic approaches. We improve our pieces to prepare for pawn breaks, then after the pawn breaks, we gain space to further improve our pieces until we have a tactic that wins us the game. Next, let's talk about decision makings. For decision making, I like to use what I call the ESC model: evaluate, select, and check. To evaluate means to come up with a plan in relation to the opponent's threats, and I would like to really emphasize the part of detecting threats. For each type of threat, there's always a static approach and a dynamic approach. If the threat can be stopped, we can choose to either stop it or create similar or greater counter threats. If the threat cannot be stopped, we can choose to either create counterplays or mitigate the consequence of the threat. So how do we decide which move is the best move? Well, that's where we need to learn the select stage, where we come up with candidate moves and run calculations for each one. Take this position as an example. Here, black played the move e5, hoping to trade off white's central pawn and get a knight towards the center. White can choose to stop this threat by playing the move d5, or he can ignore the threat and play some developing moves like bishop to e3 or queen to c2. Now, after the move d5, then black can play this move knight to c5, attacking this pawn on e4. Then after queen to c2 and a5, black has managed to develop and consolidate his knight towards the c5 square. And if white decides to play the move bishop to e3, then after knight to g4, bishop to g5 and f6, the position remains unclear. Lastly, after the move queen to c2, e takes d4, knight takes d4, it seems that white has managed to get his knight towards the central square, and black doesn't really have this tactic, knight takes e4, to reveal the discovered attack, because white can just take back with the queen and protect this knight on the d4 square. So after a bit of a calculation, it seems that the move queen to c2 is the best move in this position. At last, let's talk about the check stage to visualize and evaluate the resulting critical position after calculation. A critical position is a position with stability, or at least a chaotic position where we hold the initiative. Here, white played this move rook to c1, attacking this pawn on the c6 square, and black found this really clever idea, knight to d2, to attack white's rook and maybe reroute to the c4 square at the very least. However, knight to d2 is actually a blunder because white can just take this pawn anyway, and if the knight decides to take on f3, then after pawn takes, this rook on g4 is pinned, and thus black is losing material. So, since knight to d2 doesn't actually generate a threat, it is white who holds the initiative, so this is a miscalculation. Now, let's apply the thinking system to a position to see its effect. Take a look at this position. You can pause the video and decide the best move for black. And for those who just want to enjoy the show, let's talk first about the static and dynamic factor. In this position, neither side has developed all their minor pieces, nor have they castled their king yet. So, already at this point, we can tell that this position is probably going to be decided on the static factor. And once we take a closer look, we'll come to realize that black is leading development and he's leading castling right as well. It takes black only 1 tempo to castle, but it takes white 2 tempi to castle. If black is leading development, his static options are going to run out before white does, so according to Dorfman's theory, he needs to start considering attacking approaches. But first, let's evaluate white's threat first. White's knight is attacking black's bishop at the moment, but the degree of this threat is low. If we ignore this threat, we're not going to lose material. And with that being said, we can continue with our plan. Since we are considering static approach, the logical moves are either going to be this king, this bishop, or this bishop. However, since we're also considering attacks, the only logical move is going to be this bishop. By bringing out this bishop, we are creating space for this rook to go to the d-file and attack white's queen. The only question is, which square should we bring this bishop to? When looking at this position, perhaps the most important diagonal is this diagonal. We want to bring our rook to d8, then go to d1 to checkmate white's king. If white can play the move bishop to e2 to gain a tempo on black's queen, then he should be completely fine. But with bishop to g4 played, bishop e2 is no longer a threat. Now, if you found the move bishop to g4, bishop to e2, and rook to d8, you have the right direction, but your decision is probably not fully accurate. And the reason for that is because white has the option to go queen to c4 to gain a tempo on black's bishop, then go for the trade and castle his king. Only when you use the full thinking system process, you'll come to realize that after queen to c4, bishop to b6, and the trade, black can take with the knight, and white cannot really castle because mate is threatened on the h2 square, and this pawn on f2 is being threatened. Here, black has the initiative, and this should be a complete calculated line according to the thinking system. If you are able to calculate from bishop to g4 all the way to knight takes g4, then congratulations, you mastered the thinking system. I hope this system really helps, so if you have any question, please leave it in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.